Cool. Love it. Okay. So, yeah, we're going to talk a lot about how to navigate change in a business because, as everyone just mentioned, it's a really big thing that's happening for a lot of us, and how to build a thriving work culture. All right, so our areas of focus, this is kind of what I focus on, is culture, communication, and leadership. And my goal is to send you all out of the room with something that you feel is actionable for your business today, and for you to understand as we were talking about, how much communication, culture, and leadership are all interconnected. And so you're going to hear me say some things multiple times, and there's a reason behind that, because I'm trying to help you guys tie these three different things in your business together. Okay? And we are going to do some interacting and stuff, and I'm like, so interrupt me, raise your hand if you guys have questions. I don't want this to be an hour of me chatting up here. So, all right, I'm going to read 5 statements here. And at the end of them, if you've said or thought any of these things, I'm just going to have you raise your hand. You don't have to say which one, but I just want to know if I'm kind of who I'm speaking with here. Okay? I don't have enough time to communicate to everyone. I'm not sure how to align our new team members with our existing team. I'm not sure how to navigate our team through the constant changes and pivots of our business. I can't figure out how to get everyone on the same page when things are constantly changing. And finally, why does productivity slow every time we pivot? Does anyone identify with any of these statements? Yeah, a little bit, kind of cool. Okay, so it's not that's no surprise, right? Like, these statements are very common, again, when we're talking about business. Quick reality check here. No matter how advanced your technology or product or service idea, and what you guys just talked about in here, we have a lot of that. AI, I mean, the things that are coming out of Santa Cruz, like, people don't understand how cool everything is that's going on right now. But if your people are unhappy, they don't communicate well, and they lack leadership and direction, you're going to have some kind of struggle in your business. Okay? So that's what we're here to address. Some of us like numbers, right? How many of you guys are like a P&L reader? You love statistics. That's how you run your business. It's very important. Do you know? Okay, just a couple of us. It's okay. This is not a bad thing. But when we start talking about things like communication and leadership and culture, it feels like this like ambiguous thing, and like these, like we were saying, like what are the actions that are behind this? Well, there are actual statistics behind, if we don't focus on communication, how it can impact your business. So for those of you who are interested in statistics, let's chat about that. Did you know that U.S. businesses report $1.2 trillion annually that they're losing due to miscommunication? So that's about $12,000 per employee. So however many employees you just told me you have or you want to have, potentially, due to miscommunication, you could be losing $12,000 per employee. Does anyone just have that money lying around, right? Well, it's not something that we want to be losing money from. Impact of poor communication. So when we look at poor communication on productivity, this is where we start to see inefficiencies, delays, loss of momentum. Those things all cost your business money, okay? Employee engagement. It's directly related to a disengaged and lower morale. So when we start to, I think some of you guys put in questions, some people were talking about how to get your staff motivated. This is one of those things that if we aren't really strategic about the way we're communicating out to them, this is where we see that morale go down. And then it also creates higher turnover, and then we're spending more money to get staff in. Does anyone know how much it costs their business to bring in a new staff member? Has anyone ever done that? Yeah. So it like depends on your industry, depends on the role, but there's a number attached to how much it costs you to bring in a new staff person and get them trained and all of that. So we want to try to prevent that. On the flip side, so the positive side, teams with effective communication have 25% increase in productivity, 12.5 times higher job satisfaction, and 4.5 times higher employee retention. Okay? So again, I'm just throwing these at you in case it speaks to you, may not speak to everyone, but so that you know why we're focusing on these things. Questions? Okay. Let's talk about what good communication looks like, because sometimes, and again, this is going to be slightly different if we're dealing with contractors versus staff, but sometimes folks just don't know. Okay? First thing is that we want to have clear messaging when it comes to change. So again, our focus here today is how do we get your business through a change, and how do we communicate well while doing that. We want to understand a couple of things when we're talking to a group of people, even you guys in here, right? Some of you are looking at me because you're listening to what I'm saying. Some of you guys are reading because that's how you process information, right? Some of you aren't listening at all probably, which is totally fine. But everyone processes information differently. So when you're about to go through a big change, you want to make sure that you're communicating out and doing it in different ways, because you're trying to meet your team where they're at, and they're going to process it differently. The other thing is that we want to make sure that we're explaining the what, why, and how behind these changes. Typically, what is the easy part? Sometimes the how, or the how we're going to do it, but how does this impact them? I'm not sure if you're aware, but human beings, we're inherently selfish beings. Sorry if that bothers anyone, but we are. How we process information is based off of our experience. And especially in the workplace, your staff, when you give them information, they're going to process it. What's the first thing they're going to say? Or think? How is this going to impact me? Am I going to have to start working on weekends? Do we think that I'm going to have to learn something new? That's what's going through their head, right? So you want to make sure that you're coming to them with the information of here's the change, here's how it's going to impact you, and the why. Why that, am I allowed to use cuss words? Why the heck? I will try to catch myself. Why are we doing this? That's going to be really important to them, okay? Inclusive decision-making process. If you are a leader in your business and you're doing your job of letting your team do what you hired them to do, being there to support them, then they are always going to see things that you don't see. That's how it should be. They should see things at different levels of the organization that aren't making it up to you as the CEO or owner of the business. Just so you guys know, I am going to send these to you guys, so you don't take notes. I love taking notes, but you don't have to write it down word for word. So when you're going to make a decision, if you can involve them, not only getting input from all different levels so that you have all the information, they are going to be much more likely to buy into whatever this change is if they've been involved in the decision-making process. Ultimately, you have the final say, but if you can get their involvement, you're much more likely to have them on board. Cool. Consistent leadership, visibility, and support. So often when we bring a change and we get this initial reaction that maybe isn't favorable, our human nature is to not be in the office for a couple of days, maybe not attending meetings, like we retreat, right? Because we're so tired of getting beat up. But if you can show your team that you're going to be visible, and it's going to totally depend on your business what that looks like, if it's in person, in meetings, offering a Q&A, attending meetings you wouldn't typically, so that as the team is rolling out this change, you're there to answer questions. The other thing is, depending on how many levels you have in your organization, you want to make sure your leadership team is coming forward with a united front. Okay, I think someone put in a thing of how do we handle when our partners aren't on the same page. Well, at least in front of the staff, because that's a whole separate topic on how you handle that day to day, you want to present a united front. Is anyone a parent in here? Does anyone have children? Yeah. So you know how kids do the good cop, bad cop? My daughter will come to me and say, can I have that second dessert? And I'll be like, no, because I'm always bad cop. And then I hear her go in the next room and ask my husband the same thing, right? She's trying to see if our values, if what we've agreed upon are different. And now she's trying to pit us against each other and get her way. Well, your staff are doing the same thing behind your back. So if your leadership team, whether that's 2 people or 10, depending on your organization, can at least provide this united front, you're much more likely to get buy-in from the staff. Okay? All right, acknowledging achievements and giving credit. So often when we go through a change, we change our values, we're changing a process, we're rolling out a new software, whatever it is, this is going to require more work from your staff. Like they're going to have to learn something new, right? They're going to have to maybe change their workflows, get their teams on board. And so it's really important that we take the time as leaders to celebrate those small wins. If you're like me, this is something I had to learn how to do. I'm not inherently a small wins kind of person. I'm a hard worker, and I just work hard because I enjoy it, not because someone's giving me accolades. That's not how everyone is. I had this conversation with one of my clients this last week, and I said, it's great that you're like that. That's why you own a business, because you can work your ass off, and you don't need anyone telling you what to do. But your staff may not be like that. And it doesn't mean that they're not great at their job, and it doesn't mean that they don't provide value, but they might need those little bits of encouragement. Hey, we had this new module and we have 25% of our staff through it. We're that much closer to getting through. Keep up the good work. Let's keep going. It can be as simple as that. If you don't feel like you have the time and it doesn't come naturally to you, like it doesn't for me, find someone on your team that's really good at that. There's going to be someone on your team that not only needs that, but when you put them, you're building them up as a leader to say, help me realize as we're going through this where these small wins are, and help me acknowledge the staff because I'm missing it, or I've got to focus on this project. I need your help here. And that's going to also help create buy-in from them. Addressing resistance proactively and with flexibility. So we're going to talk a lot about resistance in future slides here, but I just want to talk about it here because I need, we want everyone to understand when we're eliciting change, you should expect resistance. Does anyone like change? Just put your hand up if you're like, hell, you like change. Every time someone brings you change, you're like, yes. They change the color of your favorite, I don't know, whatever it is, right? Human beings inherently don't prefer change. Typically, I found a couple that do. Well, that's probably, yeah, exactly. Exactly, yeah, we're all innovators until someone else's idea. Yeah. Resistance is normal. So if we can kind of embrace that, and we'll talk a little bit about this in a minute, but finding out where the resistance is coming from, right? What are they nervous that their job's going to change? What is it that's causing this resistance? Because then we can address it with them. So clear, transparent communication that's in line with your culture can drive alignment, trust, and momentum during times of change. I'm going to pause to see if anyone has any thoughts, questions. Okay. I'm going to have you guys, and we don't have to like get up, but I think I think let's do groups of 3s. I think that's what we'll do. So I'm going to have you guys, and we can just kind of like do like little groups of 3s. And so let's do that. Let's have you guys just kind of get together. And I would like one of you, at least one of you, to have something that you can like write on. I see some of you guys have paper, that's great, or at least a phone in your notes app, because I am going to have you guys write some stuff down. So we're going to keep talking about communication. There we go. And I'll let you guys introduce to each other in just a second. We're going to talk about communication. So the exercise here is that I'm going to give you a situation that you may come across in your business. It's going to be a little bit vague, but basically what I'm going to have you guys do in your groups is come up with an ineffective, well, I don't like the words good and bad necessarily, but an ineffective way to communicate this to your staff. Like if you did it this way, you probably lose a lot of them because they have no idea what you're trying to say. And then we're going to do an effective way in line with some of the things I just mentioned about good communication. Okay, is everyone clear on where we're headed? Cool. All right, so our first one is just a basic funding announcement. So it doesn't matter what kind of business you are, but your business just received funding. And basically, you have some ideas on how you want to use this funding, but you're announcing to your staff that the funding went through and now you get to do X in your business. The X really doesn't matter. The way that you communicate it and meet them where they're at does. So let's, see, I told you, Melina, I wouldn't stay in my box. It's because people move further from me. They can't hear me. So I'm going to give you guys about 2 minutes, introduce to each other if you don't know each other's names, and then just write a 1 to 2 sentence statement that's ineffective, like this ineffective way to communicate this to your staff. Cool? Ready, go.
Kristen, Malin. We want to help decide how to say it.
You know how much I love the ocean.
Yeah, so I think that's, yeah, I don't know what else. Usually that was kind of and it's all.
Plus we didn't get any input, right?
I guess
Make sure you write it down so we can share.
Just here's some anxiety for your Friday afternoon. 4:45.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and bring us together. I will give you more time to come up with your effective example if you haven't already. But let's talk about the ineffective way to communicate this out. And I'm just going to have one person from your group share that with the group. And you can rattle it off if you didn't write it down. So, ineffective. So let's have everyone, hold on one sec. Let's have everyone listen, and then I'll give you guys more time to chat. All right, go ahead.
Okay, so
ineffective.
Yeah, so we're letting everybody know we just got this funding. We didn't involve any of their input, and we're going to tell them in this really vague way that there's a lot of different priorities in the company, but we're going with this one that's really important to us.
You're using mine. Use yours. Yours is way better.
I thought you wanted
Oh.
All right. Mine was more fun.
Okay. What is yours?
Mine was we got this funding and we decided, again, without any input, we're going to move the whole company to Bakersfield because it was just a better deal for us. We have more space. It's starting tomorrow morning, so none of your badges are going to work.
Yeah.
And
We'll see you there.
There'll be more news about it when we all see you in Bakersfield, which we're sure you're going to love it.
Love it. We're laughing, but this has probably happened before. All right, go ahead.
Well, we spoke more in abstract terms, so we came up with two ideas how ineffective communication. One was to take the leadership to take credit for the funding.
Oh yeah.
Which the opposite is to actually use it as an opportunity to give credit that we raised the money because
love
of
it. Yep.
And the second one was to not announce it, and people learn about it from themselves.
Yes.
Ineffective way.
Great. Again, happens all the time. Love it. All right. Ineffective.
One of the things we talked about in terms of that topic is less of the content, but more so how to share it.
Mm-hmm.
Using like Slack or giving your name.
Yes. Yes. Love it. One of the questions that someone asked was like, when I'm communicating, what things am I communicating in person and meetings and on all these different Slack type channels now? And I think the answer is it depends. And this is a really good example of a time not appropriate to put it on Slack. Love it. Ladies.
So we came up with, yes, we got this great funding and we are going to allocate 100% of it to this one thing. And that's it.
Yeah. Love it. Okay. Those are all really good examples. So let's go ahead now. And if you haven't already, write out. And this time I like how we're describing, but let's use actual words because I want you guys to get a little bit of practice. If you can't tell, I love teaching people things. So let's actually write out 1 to 2 sentences of how, poor Melina, I'm trying, of how you would communicate this out effectively. And again, is this in person? Is this an email? Maybe specify that, but let's do an effective way to communicate it out. So I'll give you guys another minute or so. Okay? Ready, go. No more Bakersfield.
Use the same example.
Same funding example.
But we didn't say we haven't made ideas. Like, you could
I do like the idea of doing it in hand because it does that way. There's no real right? It's a right away. Everybody gets the same information. And I think that's a big we got that
Melina, what time is it? Or how long have we been going? 30 minutes. Okay. But we've been going for 30. Okay. Yeah, because we started a little bit late. Yeah, I will. I'll start with outside this time.
For the next.
All right. How we looking?
Tight on funds and this will
I really like the hybrid options.
Does everyone have something written down?
This amount, X amount for materials and Y other operating do you want to read it?
All right. We're going to go ahead and start sharing. We'll start on this side of the room this time. So give me an effective way to communicate this funding announcement out to your team.
Okay. So we kind of made this around, I guess, my line business. We
Great.
generally land contracts and we get upfront payments. So
Okay.
not so much funding, but bootstrap.
Love it.
So I think we would start out by saying gathering everyone to all hands meetings.
Okay.
And kind of start out by having introduction, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And then saying something like, "Hey team, thanks for gathering at the all hands. Want to let you know that we landed a contract with X company. They've made an upfront payment of Y amount. We anticipate allocating a certain amount to materials and a certain amount to operating expenses. We would like your input on, what kind of ranges of amounts that we anticipate needing for, XYZ materials, XYZ development efforts.
Love it. Yeah. Great. Let's go ahead and have you guys share back here.
Okay. So depending on whether you're a disparate workforce or all in one location,
Yeah.
right? That would depend on how you message. But we're disparate, we're all over the country. So this would be a video call.
Yep.
And it would start with something around, we're really excited to announce, based on all the success that we've had in the company, working hard together, achieving our goals, we've been able to realize more funding. And we're going to unlock a lot of opportunity that we've been excited to jump into, and we're going to be working in focus groups to make sure that we're all, getting all the input on how best to use this money. We have certainly some ideas we want to bounce that off of you and roll out, the new initiatives collectively.
Cool.
Something like that.
Great.
I don't know.
Yeah, I love it. Awesome. How about you guys?
All right, we're assuming a very small company that's all relatively geographically close.
Yep.
Just very simple. Thank you all for helping us to achieve this huge goal. Here are the details of a celebration that everyone is invited to in the next 2 weeks.
Okay. What do we think we might be missing in that? I love the celebration idea. That's those small wins I'm talking about. People often miss.
I like from the previous cases the focus on discussion on how the funds will be allocated.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
that.
And this is very common, right? How does this impact me? Yeah. That's what they're thinking. Great. I love the celebration. That's awesome. They're going to use some of the funds for that. But how does this impact me? Cool. How about you guys?
Well, we were working with our Bakersfield.
Okay. We're still in Bakersfield.
So we're an in-person company and we outrun our size, I guess. So we're glad to bring everybody together and to announce that we have received funding. We know we've outrun our space. We all know that this is a challenge we've been looking for. The realities of the market are such that where this makes the most sense for us to get the most space going forward would be in Bakersfield. That's why we're looking at such a geographical move, but we know how much this is going to affect everyone in our company. So how we're going to do this is, one, we're planning to do this a year from now, but we're going to take the next 3 months to discuss with each of you exactly how that will affect you. Some of you and some of your roles need to be in the office. That's a big change we need to discuss. Some might be able to make a change and go hybrid, and some might be able to be remote. So we look forward to having this conversation with everyone across the company over the next 3 months so that we're all in a good place in a year from now.
Love it. I like it. Did you notice how she was emphasizing certain words, right? Because she was making sure that they were hitting all the things. And then for extra credit, before she presented this to her team, I think you guys said an all hands meeting, it's the word that a lot of you guys use. What could she do prior to presenting this that would also maybe be helpful in shaping how she presents it? What could she do prior?
Send out a survey, ask for input prior.
Yeah, and maybe we don't want to do a survey necessarily because a lot of the team may not know about this big change.
I mean, executive team, like leaders of all, first knowing that before we land this, they're not shocked either. They're ready to answer questions for their team. Right.
And maybe even pulling in a couple key players from different levels of the organization. Sometimes I like to do, and depending on the levels, but like someone that is like an admin and get their input and say, I need you to keep this confidential, someone you trust. we're going to make this big announcement tomorrow. Maybe don't give them, 3 weeks of having to hold the secret in. But what do you think about this? Like, how does this land with you as I'm about to present this to, maybe it's 140 people or maybe it's 10, but how does this land with you? Yeah. So yes, and the executive team should know ahead of time. What's that? They see all, they know all. I'm telling you, that's where I found some of my best leaders. All right. Was this helpful? So my suggestion, and we could basically do this all day, but we've got to get you back to work. Do this next time you're going to go communicate out something. Practice. Communication is something that can be learned. A good communication, I should say, and the more you practice at it, the better you're going to get. So write out an ineffective way to communicate whatever you're about to communicate, and then see what's wrong with it and write out that effective way. Speaking of AI, because there's a lot of AI people in here, and don't get too caught up on which one I'm mentioning, but AI, ChatGPT, whatever you want to use, can be very helpful with this. Like, this is not something we had years ago, and I don't want us to unlearn what AI can't always do is help with empathy and the people feelings, but with you in combination with them, it can be helpful when you're looking to communicate out. Cool. Any questions or thoughts on that? All right. I'm going to skip us forward. Unfortunately, we don't have time for that. Okay, let's talk about culture. So I did hear a couple of you guys mention it earlier, but could you just raise your hand if you've thought about culture, you've talked about culture, this word means something to you? Okay, cool. So by definition, culture is a shared beliefs, values, behaviors, and customs that define your organization. So why does culture matter? First thing, culture shapes identity and it gets people to feel like they belong in your organization. So especially when we're going through changes, the more disconnected your team feels from your business or whatever you're offering, the harder it's going to be to get through that change. This is also really important, and something I work a lot with my clients on is this journey of the staff from the time you interview them to the time you hire them, onboard them, train them, and then let them fly in their role. These first 90 days, and probably some of you guys have this for your clients too, right? Those first 90 days are really important as you're building culture within your team. The kicker here is you have to know what your culture is. You have to be able to define this for people, and explain to, not only showing them, right, through action, but explaining to them, this is what our culture is here. For example, when you work for a startup, so when I started a business some years ago, when I interview people, I let them chit chat and we did a couple of questions, and then I said, all right, here's the deal. We are building the plane as we fly. We have no wings right now, and we are flying. How does that make you feel? I needed to know that they were going to be okay, that we are in a startup environment, and I'm not going to be able to hand you a policy and procedure about every little thing yet, because we're building those, but we're still serving the community and we're still doing our work. Some people don't function well in that environment, so you want them to know that ahead of time. Cool. Guides behavior and decision making. So I'm sure no one in this room is a micromanager, but if you know people that are, one of the reasons we as leaders get in every little thing is because we don't trust our staff, and maybe they've shown us that to make decisions when we're not around. And so one of the ways that we can start to develop trust in our staff and know that things are happening in line with our mission, our values, and how we want them done is to, again, define culture and values so that when your staff are out making decisions, you don't even have to worry about how they're making them. Cool? Promotes trust and connection. So especially after I noticed that this word silos, right? Teams being in silos became really big after COVID. So I got all these teams and they're all working in silos, they're not working together. And I think part of us going remote had a big piece of that. It doesn't mean that if you have a remote team or a combination of in office and remote that you can't break silos. But one of the ways to bring teams together and to have them do cross-departmental work is to have them all understand the values, and we talked about this earlier, right? The values and the culture of your business. Help them to understand how each of them has a part in the success of the business, and one without the other isn't going to work. Facilitates adaptation during changes. For example, if you've built a culture, I think someone used the word innovative earlier, if your culture is that you're eliciting learning and innovation, then when you come to your staff saying, we're taking on this new software, what's their first reaction going to be? If you guys are constantly talking about learning and innovating, what are they going to say?
Here's one more thing to learn.
That's what they're going to say if you're not talking about learning. They're going to say, oh my gosh, one more thing. But if you're constantly giving them opportunities to learn and constantly talking to them about being innovative and how each of them can bring something to the table, when something new comes, they're going to say, oh, this is exciting because this is what we do and I know the outcome of this because we've done this before. Versus if they're like, oh, I got to learn one more thing and it's just going to put more on my plate, right? Two totally different cultures, and that really comes from the leader. Last one is culture provides meaning and purpose to employees. So people want to do, I was actually just listening to a podcast on my way in here, and the woman was saying, people want to do stuff that matters. People care that they're doing stuff that matters, and it really doesn't matter your industry. I always thought, oh, well, this is strictly nonprofit, but no, I mean, people really, they do care, and especially this new generation, if you have staff that are under 30-ish, don't get too caught up in that, but this new generation really does. They want, and they don't care if they're at a register or what their title is necessarily. They care that what they're doing is making an impact, and so it's on us as leaders to help create that. Has anyone heard of Simon Sinek? Do you guys know that name? Yeah, a couple of us. So he's really big in the leadership space. He's the guy that came up with Find Your Why, if you've heard of that. But he says if we expect people to live the core values of an organization, we have to be able to tell them what those values look like in action, right? This is like exactly what a couple of you guys have said today, is how do we do that? Okay. I'm going to read 5 statements to you, and you're going to go through them and you're going to scale them on a scale of 1 to 5. 1 meaning completely disagree, and 5 meaning you completely agree. So if you don't have a piece of paper, do this on your phone if you don't mind. Here's the kicker. You're going to write if you have staff, you're going to write one of their names at the top. You're going to answer these according to one of your staff. If you don't have staff, pick a contractor, someone who you work with. You're going to answer these statements or rate these statements as if you're them. Okay? So not as if you're you yet, but pretend you are this and pick a specific person. I'm going to read them, but if you process by reading, that's fine. I understand how my work connects to company goals. So scale of 1 to 5, what would this person say? Our team communicates openly and clearly. I see our company values lived out day to day. I feel confident navigating changes in our organization or business. And I feel comfortable giving honest feedback. So you should have at least 5 numbers written there, and then go ahead and total them. And then now go ahead and do this for yourself. So now Scale of 1 to 5 for each of the 5 statements. Answer these for you in your role, whatever that is. And then total at the bottom. All right. Does anyone, you don't have to share your numbers necessarily. You are more than welcome to. But if anyone can just share, what was this experience like? Were some of these things that you have no idea how your staff would answer? Did anyone have a perfect score or all ones? Like, how did this go?
Pretty high.
You felt pretty high. Okay. Great. So then there's your hole. If you're, I mean, really, this can help us identify maybe some holes that we have in our culture. Great. Who else? Yeah.
I tried to think of one of my contractors for different projects.
Okay.
And like thinking about her and her manager and what her responses would be much, much lower than what my responses would be for me.
Okay.
Yeah, it makes things a little more clear, actually. That's nice.
That's awesome. Great. Steal this. I will send everyone the presentation so you can steal this. I think I saw your hand.
My only thought was, I want to redo this and take away the option of 3. See how it goes.
Not the question 3, but the
Not question
like
the number 3.
Oh.
Very easy place to land.
Yeah. Well.
And I'm like, oh, if I didn't have that as an option and I had to tilt.
Oh, I like it. Maybe it should be 1,
5 without
2.
the option 3.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're saying, and
You
I.
do that in the 1 to 10 too.
Yes.
Take away the 7, all of a sudden you're like,
Yes.
that or it's not.
Yes. Or maybe we just say 1 or 5. Anyone else?
Mine were the same number at the end.
Okay. Were they the same for the questions as well, or just the totals?
Just the totals. There's just slight wavering. I did use 3 a lot, actually.
I love it. Yeah, this can be a really good practice to help you. This is like one tiny piece of identifying how aligned your culture is. And then I do suggest all of you guys go back and do this again. Take out 3, and then maybe also do it from a different staff member. Cool. Thanks for sharing. Okay, let's talk about leadership, and keep your pen and paper close because I'm going to have you guys write down some more stuff here. So by definition, leadership is the ability to guide and motivate individuals or groups towards achieving a common goal. The ability to guide and motivate individuals or groups towards achieving a common goal. Simon Sinek says, leadership is a choice, not a rank. So what's one thing that you notice there that you would typically associate with a leader that isn't mentioned in the definition? It's what all of you guys have in common, right, in this room. What'd you say? What do you guys have in common? What's your title?
The founder syndrome?
No, I'm not diagnosing. No, it has nothing to do with the title, right? When we usually use the word leader, what's the first thing that pops into your mind is an owner, a CEO, a C-suite, right? No? I mean, unless you've been following Simon Sinek, because he talks, that's what he's saying here, is that leadership, you can choose to be a leader or not. Not every CEO is a leader, and not every leader is a CEO. So let's put that out there first. The other thing is that this is saying it's an ability. So what does that mean? You can learn to be a leader. Anyone can learn to be a leader. Okay? I'm going to have you write down 1 to 3 answers for the next 2 questions. First one, what qualities do you think a leader and I put should in quote. I'm not a big should person, but for the purposes of this statement, what do you think a leader should have? What qualities, when you think of someone you would want to follow, and go ahead and write these down if you don't mind, just so you have them. And then I'll have a couple people share. What qualities do you think a leader should have? Cool. I'm just going to kind of, well, I'll scan the room. If you don't want to say anything, you don't have to, but if you want to share 1 to 2, it would be great.
Conviction, influence, and integrity.
I love it.
Willingness to change based on input.
Good communication, good listening, good decision making.
Yes.
Integrity.
Integrity.
Concise communicator and respectful.
I love it.
That they're a good mentor
Ooh.
and humility.
Yes. Yeah.
Authentic.
Yes.
And empathy.
Cool. Love it.
Fairness, organization.
Broad, sleep, no jobs too small.
Yeah. I like it.
Clear
Feedback.
communication, clear direction, and clearly capable.
Yes. Lots of clear. I like it.
The ability to communicate the mission and how it applies to everybody.
Yeah. Love it.
I had empathy, emotional intelligence, and growth mindset.
Love it. I do love the growth mindset. All right. Next one. I'm going to ask you to be a little self-introspective, and I won't go around the room and make you share these. Write down your biggest leadership strengths and weaknesses. So in regards to being a leader, 1 to 2 strengths and 1 to 2 weaknesses. Melina, I feel like we need like background music. Okay, so again, this is something I encourage you to continue working on. Does anyone want to share anything or anything that came up? I know this is a little personal.
I'll share a weakness.
Yeah.
Institutional knowledge, therefore, I can get done faster.
Yes. Just so that he knows he's not alone. How many of us do that? I'm like that. I'm like, I want it done this way, and if I can't, it's my human nature, then I'll just do it. And it's like one of the top 3 things of leaders that make it harder in the end for them. Cool. Anyone else want to share? Yeah.
The avoidance of doing things that are really, really hard.
Yes.
Yes. Like keep putting it off and you let it go away.
Yeah. It never does. Yeah. Someone else's problem. No. This is also, and I won't go too far into it, but this is also a learned behavior. You can actually, there's a chemical response that our brain has to doing hard things. This is like something I practice this a lot when I work out. So pick your whatever that is. I practice doing really hard things there so that when that thing comes up in business, I'm like, my brain goes, I know how to do this. I don't need to avoid something hard, but you can teach yourself how to get better. Did I see a hand back here?
Yeah, it's just for me, it's good and bad, but I can be pretty emotional in front of a lot of people sometimes. So it's good because it's real.
Human, yeah.
But it's,
yeah.
You know, it's too much sometimes. And so, and then I think I have a hard time I'm real until I try to be really charismatic or funny.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's, so that's not me.
Yeah.
And that would help in leadership.
Totally. Often our strengths and weaknesses can be the same thing, right? And for me, it's again, I know how to work super hard. I don't need accolades. I'll just put my head down, but then not everyone functions that way. And so I have to pull my eyes up and learn how to lead people that are different than me. Cool, love it. Did I see on the hand?
I was gonna say, so I wrote impulsive as a weakness, and I wrote communication and understanding as a strength, but it made me realize that there were a bunch of stakeholders gathering.
Yeah.
And like, I'm really good at understanding where people are coming from and getting right down to it. And there's a lot of avoidance happening and cognitive dissonance even maybe.
Yeah.
So I kind of just brought everything out in front of everyone all at once, and that was kind of the impulse.
Yes.
And so I don't know exactly how to say what the strengths and weaknesses are.
Yeah.
But
that's what I'm saying. They're always linked. Yeah. Yeah. That's good. But identifying those. Awesome. All right. Well, let's talk about the key principles of leadership, and some of the things you guys have mentioned are on here. So I was listening, I'm going to say this a million times. I was listening to a podcast the other day. Part of it's not on this list, but if you want to develop yourself as a leader, there are thousands, hundreds of thousands of really good podcasts that if you can, it's just like learning anything. If you can start to hear the vernacular and all of these different things on a day-to-day basis or a weekly basis, it will help. But I was listening to a podcast, and he says, you open any leadership book, turn on any leadership podcast. If you are studying leadership anywhere you would study things, the first thing they're always going to say is you have to know yourself. You have to be able to understand your strengths and weaknesses so that when you're showing up in these spaces with your staff and at dinners with stakeholders, you need to understand who you are so that you can show up authentically with, as some of you guys said, empathy, which is not sympathy. Empathy, right? And on the other side of that is to surround yourself. This is something that I talk with people a lot about. Surround yourself, if you have a staff, of people who compliment you. If I know my weakness is that I suck at giving small accolades, I'm going to go find someone on my team that is really good at that, and I'm going to build them up into a leader in that space because I already know that it's my weakness. I'm going to try to get better, but I know in times of change and struggle, it's going to be harder for me. Cool? Resolve conflict with trust. Funny, we should talk about conflict, right? Conflict is inevitable in business. If you don't have conflict, maybe it's just you and you're not with other people, right? There's always going to be conflict, and that's okay. It's something so much so that, like, I would always talk to my teams when I led teams about it. We have healthy conflict here, and here's what that looks like. We have it in the situation and out of it. It's something I actually built into, like, the way that we hired people and brought people on. It's not that we were fighting all the time, but it's conflict doesn't have to be this bad thing. And here's how we have discussions around when we have conflict. As a leader, it's funny, you just kind of mentioned this. Assuming good intent. Your staff are not going to do that. They're just not with each other. Like, you could try, I mean, and again, you can probably coach some people into it, but as a leader, we want to go into these times of conflict, whether it's two staff with each other or us and a staff member, that we want to assume good intent. Now, and that means we're not saying, when you said this, I know you meant this, right? That's what they're going to say to each other. Or when someone's not turning their work in on time and they keep messing up, caught myself, that going to them and saying, this is the 5th time that you haven't turned your work in on time, you're behind on all your projects. If you don't get this done, and notice I'm not yelling, but if you don't get this done, like, there are going to be consequences. Versus, if I assume good intent, I'm going to assume that that person has maybe something going on at home, or maybe they don't have a tool that they need to be successful in their job. And guess whose fault that is, right? It comes back to me. So I'm going to meet them with good intent. Hey, what's going on? This is really unlike you, and we're behind on these projects. What do you need? What's going on with you? That's that empathy piece, right? It doesn't need to be touchy-feely, but understanding where they're coming from is really important. Support employees through transitions. We talked about this earlier, right? When we were talking about communication, be present. When shit's hitting the fan, make sure you're not retreating, and make sure that you're present to answer questions. Transparent communication is key for building trust. So this word like transparent communication it's kind of a buzzword, I think, a little bit, and people use it a lot. I'm being transparent. And it's like, well, no, you're just airing all your dirty laundry, right? Like there's a big difference. Our staff are not paid enough, and it's really not their role to know all of the BS that's going on behind the scenes. That's not being transparent. That's just venting, which we've all done. Transparent communication means that you're telling them when you don't have answers. You're saying, I don't know. Great question. I'm not sure. And you're explaining the why, like you guys were talking about earlier. We're making this big change, and here's why. Here's how this is going to impact you, etc. Defining your why and communicating that to your team, right? We've already talked about this. Are you guys starting to see the pattern between communication? Am I being redundant enough? And leadership and culture and how these are all interconnected? Okay, thoughts or questions? Have I lost you yet? Are you still with me? Okay. How much are we good on time? Okay, perfect. I have 3 more, so we're good. All right, I mentioned earlier that we were going to talk about resistance, right? And not only just acknowledging up front that we are likely going to have resistance at some point in your career, but especially when we're talking about change. Now, there are many reasons why people will present resistance when they get information about a change, but the 4 main reasons that we typically see are fear. What is this going to do to my job? Am I going to lose my job? Are we moving to Bakersfield? I hate Bakersfield, right? Uncertainty. Am I going to have to start working weekends? What does this mean for my team? I have kids' soccer in the afternoons. Like, am I going to have to stop doing that? Lack of leadership and trust. The last time they pushed out a change like this, everything changed. There was no follow-up. None of us got raises. It was a disaster. The leaders weren't present, right? They've had past experiences, lack of trust. And then, oh yeah, human nature. Because besides the 2 of these guys, everyone else, humanly, we don't always love change. So here's our framework. So walk with me on this. So we present a change and resistance appears. You can see it in people's faces, right? You're starting to see the emails, the Slack channels, maybe people are asking to meet with you, but there is concerns, confusion, and pushback. Oh, hold on, don't read that. What is our initial reaction? Or what is I'm not even gonna generalize it. What do you typically do when you see these things, hear these things? What do you want to do? Yes? Cry?
Maybe explain more rather than just...
Yeah. I'm going to fix it. I'm a fixer. That's why I opened a business. I fix things, right? No, instead, we're going to listen, right? We're going to take a step back, maybe take off your CEO hat, your owner hat. Actively listen, ask them questions, and figure out where the resistance is coming from. Because otherwise, we're going to start spouting off all these, I've done this a million times, spouting off all these solutions, and they're like, that wasn't even why I was concerned. And now you've just spent all this time and energy with us.
Now I'm freaking out.
And now I'm freaking out, yeah. They're like, yeah, now that does make sense, right? So you're trying to solve a problem that may or may not even exist. So you're going to listen. And then this is where that empathy is also something that can be learned. For me, it took me some time to get there. And what I did is I, again, surrounded myself with staff who were very naturally empathetic. Does anyone feel like they're naturally empathetic? Yeah. I mean, it really, like, some people can be more natural at it. Some of us have to learn it's like that meeting people where they're at, and in these situations, really absorbing what they're telling you so that you can help them. Yeah. So then we start explaining, okay, this is why, this is like the what, why, and how, and we're going to pull them in. So this is why I was thinking it was going to benefit the team, But let's go ahead and start that inclusive decision making now. I hear what you guys are saying. Let's come up with some solutions on how we can help the team better navigate this, okay? And then we take action, right? And monitoring progress. So how many times have we rolled out a new project or change, and then there's no progress, and the staff is kind of like, well, I guess we're doing this right, and I don't know, it still kind of sucks, and the leaders are kind of like, well, I did my job, I told you about it, and now you guys do it, right? We want to monitor progress, especially when we're starting with resistance. You want to give your team hope that, like, hey, in 2 weeks, 2 to 4 weeks, I'm going to check in with you guys. You let me know if you still have concerns of X, Y, and Z. We'll pivot, right? And then do it, because the action, who was saying that earlier, make sure the action then follows behind the process that you just put in place. All right. When we start talking, I kind of mentioned this earlier about, like, we want to start to put some kind of numbers behind these ideas of culture and leadership and communication. One of the ways that I do that with the folks I work with is, I call this my pulse check survey. So this gives us, it's a survey, obviously, that we would give to the staff. Sometimes I just ask the staff these questions. Sometimes we send it out, depending on the nature of the business, that asks them, like, pretty direct questions so that they can tell us basically where we're missing, right? This helps give us a really good idea of, are the employees engaged? Are they going to stick around? Are they satisfied with their jobs? Do they understand the company values and where we're headed? Do they think the leaders are being visible and properly communicating to them? So I'll send this to you guys with the presentation today. So feel free to steal it and try it out with your teams. But this is, like, kind of where I start with most businesses that I work with. Any questions on that? I know you can't probably read it. It's really, you can. Oh, you're close. Yeah, that's good. It's really small.
Sometimes do it without the names at the top. It's like a small.
That's a really good question.
You're my manager, and you only manage the 2 of us, and I say I don't trust my manager.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're gonna have to get rid of one of these guys.
Totally. Now 50-50. I do it without the names if it feels really appropriate. Again, I'm really big on transparency and people feeling, we have to get them to a place where they feel safe to share feedback. And I really make it clear that, like, we're not knocking our leaders here. Like, we're not trying to, like, dismantle your manager, but we do need to understand where we're falling short. So it's definitely about the presentation. But yeah, sometimes if we need to pull the names off, we will. Yeah, good question. Okay, conclusion. Culture is your foundation. Communication is your bridge. Clear, consistent, and transparent communication. Leadership is your compass. Be present. Align around your why. Make sure people understand the why behind your decisions. And then build resiliency through trust. And then my final thought is, navigating change successfully isn't about having all the answers. It's about creating the conditions where your people can move forward with clarity, confidence, and purpose. Thank you, guys. That was it. Thank you. So I'm happy to take specific questions or hang around. Like I said in the beginning, basically everything I just covered is what I offer for businesses. I do have some business cards. If you scan this, it'll take you to my contact form. However you want to get in touch, I'll email this out as well. But I love working specifically with local, small and medium-sized businesses, and just helping people basically align their teams, right? And everything we just talked about are the areas that we focus on.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Becca.
Thank you, guys. I'll hang around in case you guys have specific questions. I appreciate it.